Good evening, and welcome back to the Pastor Study on what looks to be a cold and probably very icy night tonight. And I think that kind of ties with the topic that I'd like to address this evening as well. You know, sometimes it's hard to see Jesus as a personal God. That is to say, he does not walk and talk among us today in human form. It sometimes seems like it's hard to reach out to him. Perhaps you've experienced the times you've prayed and felt like you wondered if anybody was really listening. We all go through those dry times. And yet the psalmist tells us in Psalm 136, verse 23, he says, he remembered us when we were in trouble, and his love continues forever. The psalmist speaks of a personal God, a God who is reachable by human being, by humankind. We see Jesus as being God, and he certainly is. We see him in the heavens, seated at the right hand of the Father, and he certainly is that, for that's what Scripture tells us. But he's also a God who cares deeply and passionately for his people, for his creation. That's the purpose of the incarnation. God became man. He came in the form of a baby and a human being so that he could experience the things that we do. He was hungry. He was thirsty. We're told he got angry. I'm certainly he was a trial to his parents from time to time as he was growing up, simply because he was a human little boy as well as being the Son of God. As he got older, he grieved over his friend Lazarus' death. He wept. He mourned for some people, for certain situations, and over the people of Israel. Certainly God, in the form of Jesus, displayed all kinds of human emotions towards us. He came in human form so that as humans, we could approach him. He didn't come dressed in a cathedral. He didn't come sitting upon a high throne that required the sacrifice of baby boys and girls to get his attention. He simply came to earth in human form, stretched his arms out and says, I'm here to love you. The writer of Hebrews, in Hebrews chapter 2, beginning with verse 14, says this about this topic. He says, since therefore the children share in flesh and blood, he himself likewise partook of the same things. That is, the same self and blood, the same flesh and blood that we live with every day. He partook of these things that through death he might destroy the one who has the power of death, that is, the devil, and deliver all of those who through fear of death were subject to lifelong slavery. Therefore, verse 17 says, he had to be made like his brothers in every respect, so that he might become a merciful and a faithful high priest in the service of God, to make sacrifices for the sins of the people. For because he himself suffered when tempted, he's able to help those who are being tempted. Jesus experienced temptation. We certainly know that he did in the wilderness after his baptism. He suffered pain. He suffered agony. He suffered doubt. We hear him crying out on the cross, my God, why have you forsaken me? Jesus experienced everything that we experience. That's why he came to earth, to experience those things so that he could become the high priest standing in for us, interceding for us, praying for us before the Father. So the next time that you feel like you've been left alone, that God doesn't care, that he's reachable, I want you to picture him with a tear running down his face as he reaches out for you in your circumstances and your situation, regardless of the baggage that you bring with you, because he is a reachable God. That's his promise. That's the way he does things. And that's what his word says that he is. I look forward to seeing you next week in the Pastor Study.